The
It's
fluorescent
so
lights
nice
of the
out here.
elementary
Yeah, it
school
really is,
cafeteria
especially with
buzzed
you.
overhead as
Oh,
Michael
stop
Chen
it. You're
stared at his
sweet.
I
daughter's
mean it.
painting, a family portrait with just two figures holding hands. His chest tightened. Emma was 7 now, and she'd stopped asking when mommy was coming home, which somehow hurt even more than the questions had. Mr. Chen, the art teacher smiled warmly. Emma's very talented. He nodded, unable to speak past the lump in his throat. 3 years since the divorce, and he still felt like he was failing at this single-parent thing. Between his 2 jobs, morning shift at the warehouse and evening shifts driving for a rideshare app, he barely had time to remember to pack Emma's lunch, let alone process his own loneliness. That loneliness was exactly what his younger brother, Tyler, claimed he wanted to fix. Come on, man. Just one date, Tyler had pestered him over the phone the night before. My girlfriend's friend needs a +1 for this charity thing. It's not serious, she just doesn't want to go alone. Think of it as doing a good deed. Michael had almost said no. His life was Emma, work, sleep, repeat. There wasn't room for anything else, especially not romance. He'd tried dating apps 6 months ago and spent most of his one awkward coffee date checking his phone, worried about Emma with the babysitter. But something in Tyler's voice made him pause, a strange insistence that felt off. Fine, Michael had finally agreed. One night, but I'm not promising anything. He'd assumed it would be forgettable. Maybe even boring. What he didn't know was that Tyler and his girlfriend, Rachel, had set the whole thing up as a joke, a bet between friends about whether they could get work-obsessed Michael to actually show up to a fake event. The date was Rachel's roommate Sarah, who'd reluctantly agreed to the prank, though she'd insisted on keeping it kind. Just dinner, Sarah had told them. And then we tell him the truth. I'm not cruel. Michael arrived at the restaurant 15 minutes early, because that's what anxious people do. He'd borrowed a blazer from Tyler, and it pulled slightly across the shoulders. His palms were sweating. Through the window, he could see a woman already seated at the table Tyler had described. Shoulder-length brown hair, a green dress, nervously folding and refolding her napkin. Sarah looked up when he walked in, and something unexpected happened. The joke suddenly didn't feel funny anymore. Michael's face was kind. That was her first thought. Tired, definitely, there were shadows under his eyes, but kind in a way that made her stomach flip with guilt. When he smiled apologetically for being early and asked if she'd been waiting long, she found herself genuinely smiling back. Just got here myself, she lied, and they both laughed at the obvious untruth. They ordered water. Then they talked. And somewhere between the appetizers that Michael insisted on paying for, Tyler said this was on him, but that doesn't feel right, and the main course they split because neither was that hungry. Sarah forgot this was supposed to be a joke. Michael told her about Emma, about the painting, about how she'd started learning piano from YouTube videos because he couldn't afford lessons, about the way she wrote him notes in backwards letters and hid them in his lunch bag. His voice cracked when he talked about feeling like he was failing her. You're not failing, Sarah said quietly. You're there. That's everything. She told him about her job as a pediatric nurse, about the kids she saw whose parents never showed up, who had everything except the one thing that mattered. Emma has you. Every day. That's not failing. That's love. Michael's eyes got bright. He looked away, cleared his throat. Sorry, I don't usually, I'm not normally this human. Sarah finished gently. Me either. They talked about loneliness. About how the world tells you to just push through, just work harder, just be stronger. About how sometimes being strong means admitting you're tired. Michael confessed he sometimes cried in his car between jobs, parked in empty lots, giving himself 5 minutes to fall apart before going home to be dad again. Sarah reached across the table and squeezed his hand. That's when her phone buzzed. A text from Rachel. How's the prank going? Is he mad yet? Tears of joy. The guilt crashed over Sarah like ice water. This kind, exhausted, wonderful man had opened his heart to her, and it was all supposed to be a joke. She pulled her hand back. Michael, I need to tell you something. She watched his face close off, watched him brace for rejection. It made her want to cry. This wasn't real, she said, the words tumbling out. I mean, the dinner is real, but Tyler and Rachel set this up as a prank. There's no charity event. They bet I couldn't get you to show up. I'm so sorry. I didn't want to do it, and then I met you, and her voice broke. I'm so sorry. Michael sat very still. Sarah braced herself for anger, for him to leave. Instead, he started laughing. Not bitter laughter, genuine, surprised, almost relieved laughter. That actually makes so much sense, he said. Tyler's been weird for weeks. I should have known. You're not mad. Michael shook his head. I'm tired of being mad. I've been mad for 3 years, at my ex, at myself, at the universe. I'm just tired. He looked at her seriously. But I need you to know, the things I told you were real. I don't talk like that usually. You made me feel safe. Sarah's eyes filled with tears. The things I said were real too. I meant every word. They sat there, two strangers connected by a cruel joke that had somehow become the most honest conversation either had experienced in years. So what now? Michael finally asked. Sarah took a breath. Now I'd like to start over. For real this time. No pranks, no setups. Just two people who maybe want to see where this goes. She paused. If you're willing to risk it with someone who started things by lying to you. Michael considered. He thought about Emma, about her two-person family portrait, about all the things he was afraid to want because wanting things meant they could be taken away. Then he thought about how Sarah's hand had felt in his, warm, real, there. I'd like that, he said. But I need to be home by 9. I promised Emma I'd read her a story. Then we'd better get dessert to go. 6 months later, Emma's family portrait had 3 figures. Sarah was holding her hand on one side, Michael on the other. The piano lessons were still from YouTube, but now Sarah sat with Emma to practice. The apartment was still small, but it felt bigger somehow, filled with laughter and the smell of Sarah's terrible cooking and the knowledge that loneliness didn't have to be permanent. Tyler and Rachel apologized profusely when they found out the prank had worked, just not the way they'd intended. At the wedding a year later, Tyler gave a speech about how he'd tried to play a joke and accidentally found his brother a soulmate. But Michael knew better. It wasn't an accident. It was Sarah choosing honesty over cruelty, vulnerability over pride. It was both of them being brave enough to start something real from something false. It was the universe reminding him that sometimes the things we need most come disguised as things we'd never choose, wrapped in packages we'd normally refuse. Standing at the altar, looking at Sarah's tear-stained face as Emma scattered flower petals with serious 7-year-old concentration. Michael thought about that night in the restaurant. About how close he'd come to saying no to Tyler's invitation. About how the worst joke anyone had ever played on him had become the greatest gift he'd ever received. Because sometimes healing comes from unexpected places. Sometimes love walks in through a door we thought we'd closed forever. Sometimes the cruelest pranks reveal the deepest truths about human kindness. About people who choose honesty over comedy, connection over conquest, love over laughter. And sometimes single dads who think they're broken get reminded that they're just human. Beautifully, messily, wonderfully human. And that's always been more than enough.